From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Hello, Mr. and Mrs. America. I am Keith Allen and proudly welcoming you to this Wednesday's edition of For the People on an August the 9th, 2017. So glad you tuned in. A little update, we've been raising money, as most of you that have been tuning in on a regular basis know that we're getting there. Our total today, so far, $410 from $799 to purchase the iPad. We've raised $410, so $389 to go. I believe we can do it. And we still could use your help. So if you'd like to chip in, whether it's $1 or $10 or $25, but I know we can do this. And I'm counting on you. Counting on you, America. Chuck Harder made a big difference in America on radio. And we just want to bring a little light into his room. He's bedridden in a nursing home in Gainesville. So if we can do something special for him, we'd like to do that. So as some of you that don't live under a rock, and if you've been following the news, you know that Donald Trump issued a statement on Tuesday, a fiery warning to Kim Jong Un's regime. And basically, a lot of the senators, Feinstein and McCain, well, let's narrow down to the two right now, are saying that sounded awfully like a nuclear strike. So senators from both sides of the aisle were not, well, they weren't excited. They weren't enthused with this statement. And John McCain, very, very interesting comment, but a very colorful guy. But he's going to be outspoken about this stuff. Remember, he's the maverick. So here's John McCain. Speak up, sir.
I take exception to the president's comments because you got to be sure that you can do what you say you're going to do. The great leaders that I've seen,
oh boy,
they don't threaten unless they are ready to act. And I'm not sure that President Trump is ready to act.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're very ready to act. Our bombers from Guam, are you kidding me? We have plenty of firepower in the peninsula. That's not an issue. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily have to be nukes. It could be hydrogen. So you don't have the fallout. There's other methods to use that could be just as effective. Here is Mike Huckabee, former Arkansas governor, on this very thing.
John McCain, with all due respect, voted with the Democrats on the health care bill, on the repeal. It's not that bipartisan because I don't think he is as solidly in the Republican camp as many of us would like for him to be. And on this, I disagree with him. I think President Trump is definitely ready to act. I think he's surrounded by some of the top military minds that we've ever produced. He's got General Mattis, he's got Kelly, he's got McMaster. These aren't guys who don't understand the implications of what the president is saying. He's briefed by them every day. I do believe that this is a president who is not going to take it lightly that a person is threatening to use nuclear weapons against the United States of America. When people continue to say they're going to kill you, sooner or later you better take them seriously and you better do something to stop them.
Absolutely. Positively. We've heard, but we've seen. This is not rhetoric. Once again, I reiterate, this has not been rhetoric, and usually it's been that with North Korea. It's been that for decades. That's why it's kicked the can. But he's been launching ICBM missiles, and now, and the Pentagon's known, New York Times puts out the story, but the Pentagon knew, the White House knew, Trump's known. They have the ability to put a nuke on a warhead. They've already exhibited the capability, and they're threatening us. Okay? There's one thing to ratchet up the rhetoric, something that this regime has the state news agency over there is so important. Whatever Un wants, they'll just put it out there. So everybody's kind of expected that. What they didn't expect is the ICBM and then the bombshell. No pun intended at all. So Senator McCain going on KTAR yesterday to make those comments. A big deal, John McCain. He's ready. Our military, more than ready. We will protect the United States of America. Yes, we will. I don't know if the chemo or whatever he's going through is affecting his brain at this time, but I'm sorry. This is the biggest, gravest threat that we face right now in this country. And for him to go on, well, this is the Dems, though. If Feinstein is doing the same thing. She goes, isolating the North Koreans has not halted their pursuit of nuclear weapons. Well, that's true. And President Trump is not helping this situation with his bombastic comments. Excuse me? We're going to strike New York, Los Angeles, and Guam? What in the world is she talking about? There's no question that North Korea is seeking to add a nuclear warhead to an ICBM capable of reaching the United States. Oh, my God. So Senator Dianne Feinstein agrees. Did you just hear what she said? She says there is no question that North Korea is seeking to add a nuclear warhead to an ICBM capable of reaching the United States. What this tells me is that our policy of isolating North Korea has not worked. The United States must quickly engage North Korea in a high-level dialogue without any preconditions. Hopefully, Secretary Tillerson is already discussing the possibility of reopening talks with our Asian partners during his current trip. Well, of course he is. And the unanimous vote at the UN? Unbelievable. China's on board, at least with that, with the tightening of the noose, with the embargo. You're making sure there's plenty of sanctions on there, but people are just kind of doubting whether or not China's really going to enforce 100% sanctions when it comes to energy. They're the one powering North Korea. Be interesting to see. So I'm doing some research for the show. This is something that, you figure if you're doing a talk show, you might want to do some of that. So things that you may need to know. Now, it could happen. North Korea could carry out a preemptive strike. Could. On U.S. territory. It's a possibility. They might initiate a nuclear war. We don't know. And that's since the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, and a lot of you that listen to the broadcast, and I know for a fact, were around in the 60s. My mother was around in the 60s. She remembers. Well, if they're going to continue on with their intercontinental ballistic missiles, whether we know if there's one attached or there's not attached, we don't know. But it's very interesting times that we live, you got to admit. And not since 1962, really, have we been at this precipice. I mean, this is very interesting times, to say the least. But these threats with North Korea, folks, Donald Trump making it clear that any more threats to the U.S. will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. That's Donald Trump's words. And I think that he used these words, to be honest with you, because this might be the only language that the regime because that's how they talk over there. We're gonna blast you to oblivion. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that's the rhetoric coming out of North Korea. But many people are believing that this was a message to China, that if they don't do something, there's going to be a shock and awe. So what's the first thing that you should do during these times and turbulent times? The first thing it's recommended is that we have to all stay calm. All right, that's the first thing, to try to stay calm as much as possible. The biggest thing of staying calm is preparing and being ready. Have an emergency supply kit. They can last up to at least 2 weeks, if not a lot longer. As preppers that listen to the broadcast, you got a supply. You got food supply for years. I know some of you that do, and that's good if you can afford it. Now, the official website of the Department of Homeland Security, all right, you want to go, and they'll kind of tell you the things that you should have, or we can get like a survival booklet or something like that. We put one out. One of the things they're saying, if there's a nuclear fallout, they says take cover immediately. Although areas in and around, say, the Pacific may seem more vulnerable, an attack could theoretically, they could strike anywhere. Iowa's Polk County Emergency Management recommends protect yourself from radioactive material with any shield or shelter. But if you can go as far below ground as possible, like a well. I remember digging a well in north central Florida several years ago when we were doing the Y2K house for Energy Liberty. Some of you actually have that book and you remember. But that's a perfect place to go. And it may not be very comfortable, but that's a way that you can actually protect yourself from radiation. Another thing that I've recommended is that there's people that have purchased land where they have bunkers and things like that have that type of protection that's built in that can protect you if there's any kind of fallout. But having some kind of plan, at least having some kind of contingency plan, because really, honestly, you're not going to be able to rely on FEMA, okay? You're going to have to rely on yourself. And so what I would suggest is start having some conversation with some folks in your area on preparedness and actually have a plan. Now, the biggest thing is they say get indoors. Do not stay outside. So keep away from windows during or following a nuclear strike that is near your home. You got to be inside. Immediate shelter. If you happen to be outdoors and seek shelter in a nearby building, if you're driving, they say it advises to get off the road as soon as possible. Do not leave your shelter until advised by authorities that it's safe for as long as 2 weeks, though. Because you may have to literally be underground, so to speak, for 2 weeks. Electrical, there's going to be power outages. Water and other utilities might be very damaged, so it's possible you may be advised to leave a shelter temporary to find food, water, or medical care. The other thing is stay tuned to local radio and TV if possible. Cell phones may not work, but you're going to have some radio stations on for sure, because you want to look and listen for official information. Like I say, cell phones and the internet, they may not be available, folks. And ground surfaces for miles after a nuclear attack, well, maybe radioactive materials can contaminate all of these things. So follow instructions from emergency response personnel, whether they're a warning of a nuclear attack or the situation appears to be over. Stay in a shelter or below ground until you are instructed to do otherwise. So there's things that you can do. Do your research. Do your due diligence. Don't feel like you're going to be totally helpless. Now, one drops on you, okay, immediate vicinity, it's probably not a whole lot you can do. It's probably going to be over pretty quickly. We're hoping none of this stuff happens, by the way. But it's interesting times that we live. And this is conversation worth having around your water cooler. And I know it's unnerving. I say to stay calm. It's easier said than done, especially if you're elderly or you're just kind of a nervous person to begin with. But and a healthy, normal young person would bring their blood pressure up. It's unnerving. I mean, you certainly want to be around, and you don't want an idiot like this possessing the power to do it. The guy is unhinged. The guy is crazy. He is a nut job. He killed his uncle, killed his brother, and he's killed thousands of people in prisons. I mean, and responsible for their deaths. And this guy knows the suffering that goes on in his country.